We did nothing wrong!
Yeah, we did. We were supposed to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves.
Okay, so today's discussion is going to be based on one of the comments, or we could call it an inquiry. Brother Nick was curious about your view on hell, etc., annihilation. What say you? God bless. Well, God bless you too, brother. Okay, first let's talk about the place hell and what my position is and my perspective based on the scriptures. It's very similar to Brother Ruckman's, yet there's some differences in our viewpoints and how we see things. Okay, so first let's talk about the place of hell, and then we'll talk about eternal condemnation. All right, so the place of hell, first mentioned in the Torah, Deuteronomy 32, the Hebrew word is Sheol. And I see Sheol as a holistic term, including all the parts of the underworld. In Deuteronomy 32, a fire shall burn to the lowest hell in my anger. And some refer to this as some kind of volcanic activity, which it may very well be. In either case, it is a compartment of the bigger picture, which is Sheol or hell, meaning that it is a part of what we will call the underworld. And the Greek term in the New Testament is Hades. And Hades is the Greek term, or it comes out as a transliteration in English as Hades. Hades is a Greek term, from my position, implying the holistic, in the sense of all of the compartments of hell combined. And so this is why there's some confusion sometimes when people read their Bible and they see the word hell. Does it mean hell or the grave? Or does it mean hell? Or does it mean Gehenna, hellfire? What does it mean? Because there are different compartments. Does it mean Abraham's bosom? And then you have the gulf fixed. And then in hell, the rich man lift up his eyes. Luke 16. 1 Corinthians 15, where it says, O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? That word is Hades. Well, the confusion can very easily be dispelled if you look at the fact that in the Hebrew, Sheol is the holistic term, including all the compartments of the underworld. And Hades is the Greek term for hell, yet it includes all of the parts of the underworld mentioned in Greek terminology. So that's my position on the place of hell and where it is. Of course, you also had in 1 Peter chapter 3, you have Jesus preaching to the lower parts of the earth. And then in conjunction with Ephesians 4, he leads captivity captives, gives gifts to men. Who is it? He that ascended, but he that first descended into the lower parts of the earth. You know the passages. So if you take 1 Peter in conjunction with Ephesians chapter 4, you can study that out yourself. But the lower parts of the earth, Abraham's bosom, Gehenna, which is hellfire, which is in passages such as Matthew 5:22 and 10:28. 5:22, if you say to your brother, fool, you'll be in danger of hellfire. That's the word Gehenna, meaning hellfire. And in Matthew chapter 10:28, when Jesus says, fear not them which kill the body, but after that have no more that they can do, but fear him which is able to destroy both body and soul in hell. Yea, I say unto you, fear him. That Greek word is Gehenna. Okay? And then if you're talking about this compartment, Mene Maion, which is the Greek word for grave. Of course, the raising of Lazarus from the dead, John chapter 11, that word in John chapter 11, verse 31, is the Greek word for grave. But regardless of which one of these terms we're talking about the various compartments of the bigger picture. In Genesis 35, Kivora, when Rachel passes, her soul was in departing, for she died, and then later on she is buried in a grave, that is a compartment of Sheol. And so that's why a lot of times the terminology seems like it's used interchangeably, because you have the big picture term in Hebrew, Sheol, the big picture term in Greek, Hades. Okay? And hopefully that clears things up. Okay, so Tain, Limnane, to Puras, the lake of the fire. Revelation chapter 14, verse 10, and Revelation chapter 20, verse 10. Another compartment of the underworld. In the Hebrew, Sheol, in the Greek, Hades. And so that's the place of hell. Okay, location. All right, anywhere underneath of the surface of the earth. And of course, if you're a flat earther, then this would be a straight line. But any place in a compartment of what we will call the underworld would be either Sheol or Hades. That's my position on it. So let's get to eternal condemnation, annihilation, etc. The indication from scriptures is that they'll be tormented day and night. And the indication is that it's an everlasting torment. If you read through the book of Revelation, you will see that. Revelation 14, verse 10, or verse 9 or 10, right around in that area. Whoever worships the image of the beast, receives his mark, etc., shall be tormented day and night, fire and brimstone. So the indication is that the torment is continuous. Unfortunately, that's what the implication is. And we have to remember something, going back another video we did in the past. Anyone who rejects God's sacrificial atonement, or the provisions that he made for eternal redemption and salvation, by rejecting the ultimate sacrifice made by his son, the only alternative for that individual is condemnation, because they have rejected God's love and God's reaching out, the outpouring of his heart to humanity to redeem them. This was the only way to do it. And so if a person rejects that plan, then unfortunately the consequences are, based on the scriptures, they appear to be eternal. And that would mean that annihilation would not be an option. In other words, when we say annihilation, you burn up and you dissipate and you're just non-existent. The indication from the scriptures of that is it everlasting. If you check the other scriptures that are parallel passages, Mark chapter 9, let's go there. Mark 9, 43 through 48. Mark chapter 9 and verses 43 through 48. All right. And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having two hands go into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched. The indication there is that that fire is an everlasting fire, as you read the plain text of the scripture. Now, you don't have to agree with me. I'm just reading what the gospel says in Mark chapter 9. Where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Now, what their worm is a whole nother subject, which we're not going to get into right now. But Brother Ruckman does a good study on it, and I tend to agree with him. But it's based on the plain text of Scripture. Where their worm dieth not, that means that something is lasting forever in some kind of an eternal state of punishment, folks. And I know it sounds harsh and it sounds horrific. At the same time, how much more horrific is it to reject the Creator and to try to isolate him from his creature by rejecting the redemptive plan that he has made for us? And so that's the indication, is that it is eternal. And you'll find a similar passage in Isaiah 66, in the prophet Isaiah, the very last chapter of Isaiah, which of course is a passage referring to the end times after the Messiah returns and individuals are judged. Isaiah 66, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, Shabbat, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. So the indication is that condemnation is in fact everlasting, and that it is eternal, if we're going by what the scriptures clearly say. There are other opinions on this, other perspectives, like maybe there's another chance given to people who may never have had the opportunity to hear the gospel. But at the same time, there are passages that seem to cover that. For example, in Romans chapter 1, the invisible things of him are clearly seen by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Who's that a reference to? It's a reference to tribes and nations who may not have been in the locations where they would have heard directly about the gospel from the scriptures. But yet at the same time, the scriptures, the principles in the scriptures, the idea of God's message being given to us by the things that are made. His eternal power and Godhead are seen by the things that are made. And what's the passage in the book of Psalms? The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. Let's read that one. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. I believe that is Psalm 19. Yeah. The heavens declare the glory of God, a firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language. There's no excuse for anybody to say they couldn't see it, couldn't understand it, and the message was never given to them. The message of the gospel is transmitted every single day when the sun rises and sets, and when the stars give their light at night. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, the Messiah, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run a race, etc., etc. So the indication is that there are no excuses for rejecting the fact that there is a creator, and that his message is manifest by the things that are seen, even, Paul says in Romans 1, his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, folks. And so how much more should that compel us to try to reach unbelievers as much as we can? Anyway, so that's my spin on it. And you all feel free to leave some comments, and we can talk about it some more again if you would like some time or another subject. Thank you all, and have a blessed day.